this happens sometimes this time of year with all the storms across the country, which we've been following. The great storms. There's actually huge storms in my area in Virginia, so perhaps that's what happened. But we're back. The question I just asked you, Will, I'll just get straight to the point. Now, can we even afford this? The Trump administration is asking for $1 trillion in defense spending next year. It's a lot of money, and we already have a huge deficit.
Well, right. And Emerald, that's where the NDA comes in. The NDA needs to be the guarantee that the money we spend on the military, over $1 trillion this year easily, will be used for good things. Is it going to go to long cost overrun contracts for old systems and services contracts that don't mean anything? Or is it going to go to solutions for warfighters that make a difference in the 21st century? That's the job of Congress, is to provide the oversight that ensures the money goes to the right place. Or else, you're right, we can't afford it. And we need to think really hard about why a military that has failed us so miserably for 25 years gets so much money without many questions asked. The NDA has to mean something under the Trump administration, and we've got to start off with the first one of this second term.
A concern also about massive spending from the Pentagon is also in aid to Ukraine, something that we thought President Trump was going to roll back. The Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Elbridge Colby, he put a stop to arms shipments to Ukraine last week because, quite frankly, we're in a precarious position right here, right? Our weapons are drastically depleted. In the National Interest, Brendan Weichert wrote in the last day that, quote, during the recent 12-day war between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran, Israel used up an extraordinary amount of its air defense systems to repel Iran's missile swarms. In that time, experts assessed that the Israelis went through an astonishing 2 years' worth of Iron Dome ammunition, which was supplied by the U.S. One of the reasons that Trump has pursued a negotiated settlement to that war has been because he understands that neither the Israelis nor the Americans, we can't sustain the Iron Dome defenses at the current operational tempo, let alone an increased one. It will take years, Weichert writes, to fully replenish the ammunition stocks for the Iron Dome and its related air defense systems. Neither the American nor Israeli defense industrial bases can meet that demand, especially if hostilities resume into the near future. Yet President Trump, as he announced this week, it seemed to a surprise of some of his administration members, Trump is pushing ahead with arms shipments to Ukraine. Take a listen.
Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
So what do you make of sending more weapons to Ukraine and more support, Will?
Well, Emerald, I think you'll still notice a sea change in the kind of rhetoric that President Trump uses. He's saying we're going to send defensive weapons to Ukraine, which is a far cry from the nearly unlimited policy of the Biden administration to send long-range cruise missiles, advanced rocket artillery, and F-16s to the country. So I still think we're on a path of peace. Now, a lot remains to be seen, but I think you're seeing the absurdity of some in Washington who are desperate for us to send more weapons to Ukraine, really no matter the cost. Even at the cost of our stockpiles in the Middle East, even at the cost of our stockpiles for the Pacific theater, it seems apparent to me that those who want the war to continue in Ukraine want the war to continue at any cost, even if it means the U.S. losing stockpiles for our own military contingencies. That, to me, is really troubling because I think you can give the Trump administration credit for earnestly analyzing the trade-off of military resources around the world and understanding that the unlimited gravy train to Ukraine cannot continue without serious trade-offs. There are, frankly, a lot of officials and elected representatives who still think that we should be sending an unending supply of weapons to Ukraine. That has to end somehow, or this war will continue and perhaps even escalate. That's what I think President Trump is still wary of, and why he's still trying to march towards peace. But it does, I think, put the ideological, specter of this debate pretty clear that some really are committed to an endless war in Europe, no matter the trade-offs for American interests around the world.
You're absolutely right. And that includes some Democrats and some Republicans as well. Well, Thibault, it's so nice to meet you from Center for Renewing America. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Emerald. Hope so.
Up next, we talk about the threat to ICE agents from Marxist communist terrorists with Victor Avila after the break.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer.
In a bit of disturbing news that, of course, the corporate press continues to ignore, Immigration and Customs Enforcement reports that, quote, nearly a dozen violent assailants equipped with tactical gear and weapons attacked U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Prairie Land Detention Facility in Alvarado, Texas on July the 4th, shooting a local law enforcement officer in the process. According to ICE, the officer is expected to recover, which is great news, from the attack, which occurred just days before an armed activist shot a U.S. Border Patrol official in McAllen, Texas, and which was coordinated to vandalize the facility and disrupt operations there. The 11 people in question were clearly prepared to conduct real terrorism targeting U.S. law enforcement officers. Interestingly, little has been said. Meanwhile, if you were a grandmother who wandered peacefully into the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, you likely had your life ruined by the federal law enforcement agencies. Many of these 11 people arrested were apparently illegal immigrants themselves, by the way. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. It's not some isolated incident. This is part of a larger pattern of left-wing political terrorism directed against their political foes on the right, but also the organizations that represent the institutions of our country, such as those in law enforcement, like ICE. In other words, my friends, as I've been telling you, it's a communist revolution underway. The illegal immigration issue is just the cover for that political violence. After all, it wasn't that long ago that Los Angeles and multiple other major Democratic Party-run cities went up in flames of the Democratic Party's revolutionary fervor. Just 2 months ago, left-wing terrorists were lobbing bricks at law enforcement as they entered the burning streets of Los Angeles to stop the left-wing rioting there. So, suffice it to say, there's a pattern here. To talk about this and the Trump administration's overall record thus far on curbing illegal immigration is our friend, former ICE agent and author of Agent Under Fire, A Murder and a Manifesto, Victor Avila. Victor, it's good to see you. I know this must have been particularly concerning for you as someone who worked in that job, and I would assume have many friends and former colleagues still out in the field. Just your reaction to that disturbing news.
Disturbing for sure, Emerald. And, my partner and I were ambushed in Mexico. I know what this is about and what it doesn't matter if it's from a cartel or from a left-wing group. It's still organized. It's still, going against ICE agents just for doing their job. It is mind-boggling to me how the left continues to pick on the wrong people. They continue to side on those on the wrong side of law and order. They side with the criminals, they side with the illegals, and they side with the cartels. This is just totally intolerable to me that we're here. But you talk about the pattern, 2 ambushes in Texas, a couple of days apart, Portland, LA. This has to stop. And what I haven't heard, Emerald, is anyone from the Democrat side saying and condemning this to stop. And this is what leadership needs to do at this point. We're trying to do it on our end and explain to them who ICE really is and what their authorities are, because they don't seem to want to understand. They treat ICE agents like they didn't have any authority to do what they do. They're accusing them of covering their faces. Now they're saying that they wear no identifiers. Listen, look, pay attention to the patches, to the insignia that they have on their. All they're concerned about is that they're dressed in tactical gear to go arrest these people like any other police agency would do. And they're trained like any other police agency out there. And so the misinformation has to be corrected here.
That you said, why are they on the wrong side always of law and order and law enforcement, or just the right thing? And I can't be that generous with them anymore, Victor. That's why I said this is actually a communist revolution, of which I think most of the Democrat Party is taking part in, because they can understand. A child can understand what is really going on here. But besides that, our ICE agents are in real danger. You know yourself, because you've faced it, maybe a little bit different, but you faced a similar threat. How is ICE responding? Is there a different kind of training that they're giving these agents now in the field? What are they doing to prepare their agents for? This isn't just dealing with illegals. This isn't just dealing with the cartels now. This is dealing with a different kind of threat, communist terrorists. So how are they addressing that?
They're addressing it by now having to have security for the police. If you figure that out, now the ICE agents need to look at their surroundings when they go to an area. One of those is the military, actually helping them out. The National Guard, sometimes active duty military in some of these areas, having to provide the security zone when they go into these enforcement activities, like you saw at MacArthur Park the other day in California, where the mayor showed up. You see, this obstructionist, these impeding of law enforcement, it has to be dealt with. And I agree with you. I think we do have to step it up here and call for what's right. I'm talking about arrests. I'm talking about prosecutions, and letting and sending a message to these crazy left-wing nut groups, whether they're Antifa, whoever they are, and how they're organized, that's for sure, is to send a message that they're not going to be tolerated, and you're going to be met with force if that's what it merits at this point.
So let me ask you, you talked about the military, the law enforcement having to have their own security, which the only next step up is the U.S. military, right? Are they now guarding facilities like the one that was targeted the other day, which we actually have a picture of? Do you now have U.S. military guarding these kind of facilities like this?
I understand that some of them might, not all of them. Obviously, manpower is an issue, and now you're having to have people looking outside and patrolling their own place of work. And whether it's a detention facility, whether it's a border patrol facility, this is where they actually go show up to start their duties. And it makes no sense to me. And now they have to protect themselves as they arrive to work, just like in the case of the ones in El Dorado, Texas, where they were ambushed, and even in McAllen, Texas. So it is, I know that Tom Homan is taking very different measures now. Now, not only when we go out there and do an operational plan, that operational plan now is going to include security and perimeter security for the actual agents, whether it's other task force officers, whether it's state and local, whoever it is that can help ICE agents conduct their business.
Praise President Trump, saying that illegal migration is at record lows. He gave it a buzz phrase. He called it the Trump effect, which there's a Trump effect on a lot of aspects of life, but this in regards to the border. Is it where we need it to be, or do we still have a ways to go? It does seem like the traffic at the border, you can confirm, right, is pretty low now.
I love the question, Emerald. I'm glad you brought it in because we're all about the truth. Listen, I was just in Arizona border a couple of weeks ago, and yes, the border is as secure as I had ever seen it. And yes, the numbers do reflect that. But let's call it what it is. We still have a lot of drugs, and we still are coming through the border. They kind of scaled down back on the fentanyl, but guess what? Methamphetamine and cocaine are going through the roof, and you can see that by the seizures that are occurring as recently as yesterday. So you still have a high level of human smuggling. So now they have to find ways, and I'm talking about the cartels, to bring their people into the country. Is that still happening? Yes. Are there still gaps on the border? Absolutely. So is there a way to go? Yes, there's always way more to go. And there's more to go in attacking the cartels and many other aspects of the smuggling aspect of this. The ports of entry are seeing tremendous spikes in seizures because the cartels now having to go back to their old ways and techniques of smuggling the illicit substances and human beings into our country.
So good news, but still work to do. Victor Avila, thank you so much for jumping on to share your firsthand experience and how it relates to what ICE agents are seeing now. And I know you continue to talk with them, and you just went to the border, so we'll catch up with you again soon because it's an issue that we'll continue to cover. Thank you so much, Victor. Always good to see you.
Yeah.
And apparently, it's not just drugs, humans that cartels or groups are smuggling across the border. Apparently, that also includes livestock. We'll talk about that with rancher Shaft Sullivan in a very interesting story after these commercials.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at NirvantaHealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to NirvantaHealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
In yet another See We Told You So moment, Trump administration Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins has sealed the U.S. border with Mexico over concerns that cattle coming into the U.S. from Mexico are infected with a particularly invasive bug species, which we've talked about on this show, known as the screwworm. Now, you'll remember that our friend Michael Yon has warned about the screwworm on this program for years and on his Substack for more than 2 years. Rollins, who is not who we consider a real member of MAGA, has shown herself to be open to pressure, though, from MAGA, so that's a good thing. We'll give her credit there. Her announcement reads, quote, "I've ordered an immediate shutdown of live cattle, bison, and horse trade through the southern U.S.-Mexico border. This decisive action comes after Mexico confirmed another case of New World screwworm in Veracruz. As promised, USDA remains vigilant to ensure the protection of America's livestock and food supply." Good on you for responding. It gets stranger, though. Apparently, there's such a thing, as I noted in the tease to this segment, as cattle laundering, which is apparently like money laundering, but with big cattle. According to the trade publication Beef News, quote, "Cartel-linked cattle are entering the U.S. beef supply with clean USDA paperwork, and no one is watching the real owners. From smuggling routes in Chiapas to government-tagged animals in Jalisco, Texas, narco ranching syndicates have mastered the art of meat laundering." And joining us now is Shaft Sullivan. He's an American rancher He's on the front lines of what Michael Yon and myself have been talking about for years on this show. Shad, it's good to see you. We actually had a major development since we booked you with Brooke Rollins responding to calls to do what she just did. It's good to see you, Shad.
Hey, Emerald, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
So there was all indications prior to yesterday was that Brooke Rollins had no interest in blocking this cattle from coming in from Mexico, and then all of a sudden she changed her tune and made this very important announcement yesterday. Do you believe? I know you were calling fervently for her to do so. Our mutual friend at Meriwether Farms, Catherine Gill, who is a former Trump administration official and probably has still the era of several important people in the administration, was calling for her to do so, and she did. Is it a result of the pressure from America First farmers?
Well, I think that had something to do with it. This issue is such a complex and always moving issue that there are several factors that came to play here. And obviously, Kathy had the ear of the administration. RCAF USA wrote a letter to President Trump and Secretary Rollins 2 weeks ago calling for this closing of the border. We knew that they were going to open it up on July 7th, just a phased in opening, and they opened it up at Douglas, Arizona a couple days ago. It was ironic. It was a short story, and she shut it down last night. We had RCAF USA, along with their letter, had 19 other cattlemen's organizations sign on to that. But this issue is very complex because you just touched on a lot of things that matter, and that includes cattle smuggling. The screwworm is huge issue. And if it comes into the United States, which we have had it eradicated since 1972, if it come into the United States and got into our food supply, our herds, our cattle, and not only that, but also got into the wildlife industry, it could decimate our local and state economies. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. I think that our letter had a lot to do with it. I think that food security, national security, this smuggling issue, that is not a new issue. We've been talking about that for many years. And then it just so happened that I think yesterday or the day before, Mexico allowed the entry of 4,700 Nicaraguan cattle into their country. Now, those cattle would eventually find their way to the American Mexican border and find their way into the United States. Now, that is very dangerous because Nicaragua has had cases of the New World screwworm. So we don't want that to, affect our cattle here in the United States. And so we got to be very vigilant. Now, she did say they found one screwworm, which doesn't make sense at all. I'm sure there's a plethora of infestation in Veracruz, Mexico, but that's where it was found, supposedly in a cooperation with the Mexican government that they reported it first. I'm glad they did, if they did. But nonetheless, the American cattle producer is protected once again today. I am sure that the corporate feeders and the Mexican ranchers on the other side were lobbying Secretary Rollins very hard to open that border, but it was just overtaken by national and food security. So she shut it down last night, and we're very thankful she did.
Yeah, I'm very thankful she responded to this threat. Why would even those groups want to bring in the screwworm? Would it not be detrimental to their own business as well?
Yeah, it absolutely would. But on the other hand, the feeding industry is such a huge industry in the Southern Plains that they're running out of cattle. Those cattle that they imported, before they closed the border, are being harvested right now, and so their feedlots are empty. And then the Mexican side, those cattle are bunching up and grouping up on the Mexican side. They need something to do with them, and that trade is important to both the corporate feeding industry and the Mexican ranching industry. So I would say that they were all putting pressure on, and it makes sense. But if we're going to promote the America First policy, we have got to protect our borders, and we have got to protect our national food supply. And that's just the way it is. It's a hard reality to deal with, but we got to deal with it.
Yeah, we do. And real quick, I want to get into another issue in just a moment, but I just want to know because, obviously there's we talk about the influences of big pharma every single day on this show. We don't talk about the influences of big ag nearly as much.
No.
How do you think the administration is doing thus far in protecting the independent farmers, the independent ranchers, or how much are they still sort of in bed with big ag? Because most administrations past have been.
Listen, I'm a Trump guy all the way. I'm America first all the way. But we do have a problem in this administration with holdovers in these agencies, and they are proving to be doubling down on their support of the global cabal. I call it the war on beef. I have a great presentation that really recognizes and explains what the war on beef is, which is really just an attack on the charters of freedom, our liberty and freedom. And so what we have seen in mouth talk has been great. Like, we're all about independent farmers and ranchers and our food supply, but our actions are totally different. Our actions are still showing that the global corporate system has total control. And that ultimately comes from the directives of the global elite and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. It's about a no border situation. That's what this is. And it ultimately becomes about the land. Who's going to have access to the land and its natural resources, which under the Constitution are there for the American people. Private property ownership is the most important aspect of freedom and liberty. So the answer to your question is we have too many holdovers in the agencies. They all need to be gone. We need to rehire on the premise of liberty and freedom and independent production and consumption. That's what sustainable development is. It's controlled production and consumption. And honestly, President Trump said we're gonna whitewash these agencies that are promoting the woke ideology, the climate change lie, and we're gonna get that out. But it hasn't happened yet. In fact, just July 3rd, they hired a guy that was the head of the sustainable development portion of Tyson Foods, McDonald's, and OSI to lead our food safety inspection service. He is all in on sustainable development, communism, and he's part of the problem. We got to get these holdovers out. We've got to hire the right people that are going to promote America first, liberty and freedom under the Constitution of the United States. That's where we're at, Emerald.
Well, who has access to the land? And communism is actually the focus of our next segment, Shaz. So I want you to stay right here.
Okay.
We're going to give some more news out of agriculture, and then I'll bring you in to Iraq. So stay with us, okay?
I want to know who owns the land around our bases and strategic bases, and getting an understanding of why foreign entities, foreign companies, foreign individuals might be buying up land around those bases. That's something I should be paying attention to on behalf of the American people, on behalf of my department, and on behalf of the president. It's common sense.
Now, that was Secretary Hegseth announcing their plans to block China from buying farmland in America. But if only they listened to Mike Lindell way back in 2012, here he is talking to Don Imus on Fox Business Channel and warning about China all the way back then.
Yeah, and now we're going to buy up, I want to start buying the cotton fields because China's buying our cotton fields and taking our cotton from us.
Now let's bring back in our rancher, Shad Sullivan, to react to this news. Shad, this is more moving in the right direction, I think, right on the part of both the Agricultural Department and in this case, Defense, because it's a national security issue. Hegseth and Rollins are investigating Chinese acquisitions of farmland near key U.S. bases in North America. Speaking of who has access to the land, how do you feel about this recent announcement as well?
Well, I like the announcement. The National Farm Security Plan is a great announcement. I think there is going to take a lot to be improved upon it. Some of the supporters behind her, like G.T. Thompson and Roger Marshall out of Kansas, they are part of the problem. G.T. Thompson introduced the Sustains Act in 2023, which prioritizes public-private partnerships, which has allowed the government to partner with agency or organizations like the Nature Conservancy to buy land and take it out of production. And by the way, on the foot of that, the Nature Conservancy has partnerships in terms of conservation easements on some of these lands that have been acquired by the CCP in the United States. We have some real problems in this government and these public-private partnerships that are not going to be in favor of independent production and property rights. And it needs to be looked over by this administration. I think it's a big deal. We're on very dangerous territory. Nobody who is a nemesis of the United States needs to be owning any land here in the U.S., going into competition with the private landowners. It's taking land out of production. It's decimating rural America. And that's why I say in my presentation, The War on Beef, everything is about the land. We have these mega environmental organizations who are promoting the climate change lie, saying we need to conserve the land, when in all actuality, we need more producers on the land, owning the land, and upholding the liberty and freedom of Americans across our land. It's a very dangerous situation. Now, I support this. I think it's a 7-point plan that she brought out, but we're going to have to get real about talking about some of these issues and those people like G.T. Thompson who, proposed and actually passed the Sustains Act, which gives agency heads the power to make rules away from Congress. And that's wrong. And it prioritizes public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships is all about centralization, giving the global corporate system more power and taking more power and resource access away from the people. It's very dangerous.
That is very dangerous. Look, what we now know, which is encouraging, which I didn't know at the start of the administration when he named Brooke Rollins as Ag Secretary, when we'd much rather seen somebody like Congressman Thomas Massey, who is an actual farmer from the great state of Kentucky, is that she will bow to pressure from America Firsters. I know her. She's not really an America Firster at heart, but if we keep the pressure up, but it would be great if they actually had and I don't know if they've done it, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're much more well-versed in what's happening at the Agriculture Department. It sounds to me like it would behoove the administration to have a roundtable with, say, a group of you and your colleagues, right? And talk about some of these issues more in depth from a base of knowledge that you have that probably no one in the Agriculture Department or the administration actually has.
We need more producers giving advice to the administration. But at the same time, we have to be very careful because there's trade organizations that have kowtowed to the global corporate cabal, and they are living under a regime of pay to play. So we need real independent producers giving advice to the administration because we're the ones out here in the front. Now, with all of these new hires, I realize that we have a big system that we have to change, and we have to change it quickly. This wasn't torn down in a year. It's going to take a while to get this back. But when you're hiring, kids from trade organizations and colleges and interns from the Hill that have no real world actual production experience, it's going to lend ourselves to problems down the road. I'm not saying we shouldn't hire them. I'm saying we have to get some more advice from real producers, on the ground producers into this system and get away from this corporate pay to play lobby system that has just killed and decimated rural America. Listen, everybody's got an idea, but the truth and the reality is it's all in the fruit. We are losing our schools, our communities, our churches. Rural America has been decimated, and it's because of the system we've lived under. And it's not just a Democrat problem, it's a Republican problem. And that's why rural America voted for Trump in such overwhelming ways, because they believed he truly is an America First man who wants us, along with him, to promote the America First policy. And some of these people, they're entrenched, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Listen, I always say, and I'm a registered Republican in my small town, don't get me wrong, I'm a constitutional conservative, but the Republicans are taking us to the same place the Democrats are. The Democrat party is a party of socialists and communists. The Republicans are taking you there through big business. At the end of the day, you're a serf to both sides. And so this is where we have to end this, and we have to correct the ship right now. We have to right it right now. It's our time.
It is our time. You're right. It's a Republican problem. I'm from coal country, Virginia, so very rural. There's farmers there too, but it's coal country. And now I'm fortunate enough to live in a beautiful rural area where I'm surrounded by wonderful independent farmers. And they still have their Farmers for Trump signs up, because remember in 2016, these people voted in the primary for Donald Trump because they were breaking with the Republican Party that had, as you stated, decimated rural America and had exhibited time and time again that they did not care in the least for our people. So this is our time. Thank you so much. This is such a wonderful conversation, Shad.
Yeah.
I love farmers. In another life, I dream I would be living on a huge farm and running a farm. My husband jokes because we're not like that at all. But I have lots of friends who are farmers, and I'm fortunate enough. I was telling my husband this morning, and it was so great. I'm like, do you realize that the breakfast I'm cooking right now, I know every farmer. I personally know every person that this food came from, as is the same for our dinner last night. And it's just a wonderful feeling, and we need to support our farmers.
Awesome.
We're so blessed for that.
Well,
and
and that's really what COVID did to us. Is it made an American consumer realize the dangers of centralized food system, which is what we've got to get away from. So, congratulations to you, and thank you so much for having me on. What a great conversation.
We'll keep following this, and hopefully the administration is listening, and a group of you all will get in there and start advising them on a more regular basis. That's our goal. Thanks so much, Shad. We'll talk soon.
Have a good day.
Coming up, remember when President Trump in February signed an executive order to review whether the United States should even stay a part of the United Nations? What's going on with that? We'll discuss that in more detail after these commercials.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Huge breaking news. Mike Lindell Media Corporation, which includes LindellTV, has gone public with the stock trading symbol MLMC.
Kara Castronovo from LindellTV. This is Allison Steinberg here with LindellTV. We are currently on LindellTV.com.
The platform, which has rapidly grown to attract 7.2 million monthly viewers and 150 million annual impressions. Vocalist's subsidiary social media network supports over 70,000 accounts, and MLMC is poised for even greater success.
This is going to be big, everybody, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the U.S. will impose sanctions on a United Nations official the U.S. says is conducting political and economic warfare against the U.S. and Israel. The official is UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, which Rubio says engaged in, quote, illegitimate and shameful efforts to prompt the ICC, the International Criminal Court, action against U.S. and Israeli officials, companies, and executives. Rubio also said, we will always stand by our partners in their right to self-defense. He continued to say that the United States will continue to take whatever actions we deem necessary to respond to lawfare and protect our sovereignty and that of our allies. But why do we even continue to engage in the United Nations. Near the beginning of his term in February, President Trump signed an executive order that pulled the U.S. out of the UN Human Rights Council, the UNRWA refugee organization, and has set the stage with that EO to leave UNESCO as well, which operates the globalist command and control system and its attacks on humanity, and ordering an analysis with that executive order of whether the U.S. should even remain in the UN. Listen.
View of American involvement and funding in the UN in light of the wild disparities in levels of funding among different countries that, as you've expressed previously, is deeply unfair to the United States.
So I've always felt that the UN has tremendous potential. It's not living up to that potential right now. It really isn't, hasn't for a long time. It has, there are great hopes for it, but it's not being well run, to be honest, and they're not doing the job. A lot of these conflicts that we're working on should be settled, or at least we should have some help in settling them. We never seem to get help. That should be the primary purpose of the UN, the United Nations. And again, it's got great potential, and based on the potential, we'll continue to go along with it, but we got to get their act together.
Yeah, well, how long do we give them to get their act together, or when do we just completely lose hope? Join us now is Dr. Rima Leibal, who has been pushing to get us out of the UN for years now, and other globalist multilateral institutions. Dr. Rima, it's so good to see you. And I think this is a great continuation, honestly, of the conversation we were just having with rancher Shad Sullivan about the globalist push to destroy beef and farms here in the United States. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's delightful to be here. And I was thinking what a perfect segue this is, because Shad Sullivan, whom I have just fallen in love with, Shad Sullivan understands the issue, but there's a container that issue sits in. And that container is bigger than the UN, of course. It's globalism. And what does globalism mean? Of course, it's the Marxification of the entire society. Now, it's really important, Emerald, to put this into a little bit of historical context. The UN is doing exactly what it was designed to do, to take over the world, to depopulate and to enslave. That was the whole purpose. When John D. Rockefeller Sr. embraced the new concept of eugenics in the middle of the 19th century, he said, hey, I'm the richest guy in the world. I can shape the world the way I want. I can get rid of all the people that I don't see any purpose for, and I can control everything. He and the other great capitalists of the world, the robber barons, the Rothschilds, the J.P. Morgan, Perkins, all of the great capitalists, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, what they did was support the emergence of the Marxist system. In fact, the Communist Manifesto, and Marx and Engels were on the Rockefeller payroll while they had the time and leisure to write the Communist Manifesto. The Rothschilds bought and paid for Mao's revolution. The Rockefellers bought and paid for the Bolshevik revolution. And when you go shopping, you buy what you want, especially when you have that much gold bullion to buy it with. You buy precisely what you want. Why would the great capitalists create Marxism? Well, because they, like the globalists that we have today, don't care about the labels. What they care about is the absolute and utter control. So if you control the means of production, and you control the production, and you control the distribution of the product totally, you're right where the power people that Shad was alluding to want to be. They don't care whether you call them globalists or capitalists or Marxists or Zionists or yellow elephants. They really don't care, because they use any title that comes along. And that's part of the reason that I believe that we have to have a two-step process. The two-step process is, of course, getting out of the UN, which, by the way, is a totally fraudulent organization. It's merely a club of countries. And we have, quote, treaties with that organization, but you can't sign a treaty with a club. You can only sovereign nation to sovereign nation form a treaty. So none of our obligations with the UN actually mean anything, and legally. And we need to get out. We need to take the money that we put in out. But the important thing is if we just go that far and we withdraw from membership, we've lost anyway. We'll still be depopulated, we'll still be enslaved, we'll still be destroyed as a species from the DNA out, which is what they're about. We have to then unwind all of the control mechanisms that they've spent the last more than 80 years putting into place, from the smallest municipal governance level, the school district, the water utilization board, every single aspect of governance, up through the regions, up through the states, up through the national, and into the international geopolitical. The control systems are now complete. For instance, HHS. Secretary Kennedy knows perfectly well that on day one of President Trump's term, we were withdrawn from the World Health Organization. But the World Health Organization defines, controls, and in fact is the operational system for the second largest agency in the United States, which is twice as big in budget and personnel as the Department of Defense, and that's HHS. So unless we remove every one of the control mechanisms, and they are pervasive and powerful, unless we get rid of the bureaucrats that are in place to keep those things operating that Shad was talking about, unless we actually take the time to unwind the pervasive control mechanisms from every aspect of governance and civil society, then the globalists win anyway. They'll just wrap themselves in the bunting, the new flag of the new populism, of the new sovereignty, blah, 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 and do the same thing. And what is it that they want to do? They want to depopulate and dehumanize us through biodigital convergence, transhumanism, and other absolute atrocities.
You put it so eloquently. You put it so well. I mean, it seems like such an overwhelming topic, and we discuss it so often. I don't think I've heard anyone put it so succinctly as to the agenda that we face and how it intertwines into every aspect of our life, not just nationally, but globally. We're running out of time, but I just want to hone in on the first step that could be done. We have all this unwinding to do, which I understand very well, having lived in DC amongst the bureaucrats and other power centers. But Trump needs to withdraw us from the UN and the WHO completely, right? And that would just be a start, and then we do the unwinding. I don't, and 1 minute, 30 seconds. Why has he not done that yet? Because he voices the need for this and has since the first term. So why not do it?
And why did he set up a total surveillance system? And why has he not taken the 3 beautiful vaccines and now the 3 more and more mRNA vaccines off our shelves?
All important questions.
PreventGenocide2030.org is a place where people can take action to bring political pressure to make these things happen. Thank you so much for chatting with me. This has been lovely.
Thank you. We'll have you back to talk more about it, because it's one of the most important topics we could discuss, if not the, because it affects everything else we talk about. Thank you so much, Dr. Rima. It's wonderful to make your acquaintances. Go to PreventGenocide2030.org. That is it for this hour of the show. I just want to flag on a programming note, we'll have the wonderful Dr. Peter McCullough with us tomorrow to discuss more of some of those problems that Dr. Rima just outlined, specifically at the Health and Human Services Department. That's at noon tomorrow. I'll see you back at 2:30. Christy Lee is next with DC Dispatch. Stick around.